Hello and welcome to a humble Highland home. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope you're all well and haven't been affected too much by the recent storms. We did have some strong winds, but that is one of the benefits of us being tucked away in the corner of the strath, is that we don't always get affected by the strong winds. Change in the weather is just another step towards the colder months approaching, as the wind takes most of the leaves, leaving only the most persistent on the deciduous trees. Autumn triggers the internal feelings of nesting for me. It's a time to pull back from the garden, as it doesn't need so much of my time. But before I fully go into cozy mode, there are some things that I need to do so that everything is ready for the colder months and we can make the most of what we have and prepare for the growing season ahead. Today I'm working mainly in the Polytunnel, and it wasn't the smartest idea to accidentally kick the tray containing hundreds of garlic cloves just waiting to be planted. I've taken another harvest of carrots and beetroot, and they'll be heading into the kitchen to be preserved. I've used different preserving methods for my carrots, and this year I have blanched lots and put them in the freezer, and I've got some in cold storage, and I've also left some in the ground. We prefer to eat carrots fresh from the ground, and we use the frozen carrots in cooking, but in the midst of winter we are very grateful for any of our homegrown preserved foods. And that's why you can still see some patches of carrots that are still in the ground, and at the moment they've been left to keep growing, but as soon as it gets a bit colder I will be cutting off the tops of the carrots, and then I will cover them with a piece of wool or fleece and use the ground as a natural root cellar. Once I cleared the harvest of carrots and beetroot, I've added a small layer of homemade compost, which will become home to next year's crop of garlic. I won't be planting the garlic too deep this time, as I will be adding another layer of compost once I've cut the green off the carrot tops. If the carrots weren't there, I would have just added a thicker layer of compost and planted directly into that, but I would have planted the garlic a little bit deeper. You still have time to plant garlic if you're a little bit late this year. It will just be a little bit later to harvest time. Using the no-dig gardening method, once I've added my compost, I won't be doing anything else to the garlic until springtime. And then as everything starts to grow again, I will add a layer of well-rotted manure to give the garlic a welcome nutrient boost as they start to give all their energy to growing as the days get longer and the soil starts to warm up again. I've shown in a previous video how I plant my garlic, so I will leave a link to that in the description below. Over the past few years, I have increased the amount of garlic that I've grown just by saving the best and the healthiest bulbs from the previous year's crop, and then just preserving them until it's planting time, generally in October, and I've just increased the crop naturally that way. I haven't actually counted how many that I've planted, but I think space-wise, I think that's plenty. The mystery plant still remains a mystery. I think it was some kind of squash, but it's starting to rot now and it's dying back. So I'm taking this out along with the last of the courgette plants, and it's time to say goodbye to them for this year anyway. Now the garlic is all planted, I'm giving it a good water to encourage the garlic to establish itself and start to set its roots. In the growing bed at the side here, I've got various plants growing which should produce crops in layers, using interplanting to make the most of the space. Fleece is at the ready because we never know when we're going to get that sharp frost. So this fleece is to cover the side bed, and I will get a bigger fleece to cover the middle bed as and when we need it. Now we've got the garden beds ready, so next I'm doing a bit of housekeeping and I'm making sure that we can maximise the light coming into the polytunnel by giving it a good clean inside and out. It's amazing just how much light is obscured by the build-up of grime and the green mildew, so it's worth the time and effort to establish good hygiene practices. And I do the same for the greenhouse. Now it would have been helpful if I'd brought a pair of gloves up to the polytunnel with me rather than just 2 right hands. But hey, that's what I've got, so that's what I'll use.
She hopes for a clear view before the day is done. What can you do when you're head over heels in love? No need to fight, but it's keeping her up all through the night. No end in sight. She wanders along the trail down to the river. But will she dare to set sail? The thought makes her shiver. Watching herself behind those lonely eyes. The mirror of night are making it so hard to tell wrong from right. No end in sight.
And whilst I'm on a bit of a roll here in the polytunnel, it's a good time to have a bit of a sort out, a reorganise and a good old tidy up. So that means the growing support strings can be pulled up and wound up to be tied up out of the way. Next, I'm taking out the clay water and spikes and bottles. I always give these a good clean and make sure that they dry thoroughly before storing them for over winter time, as the clay can crack in the frosts. So I like to store them where they're insulated, and I will bring them out again in late spring, normally when I'm planting the tomatoes. You may be able to hear the chainsaw going in the background. This is Adam cutting up the wood that has been here for a couple of years. We're planning on cutting it up a while ago, but we didn't have the log store built by then, and time and plans don't always marry up. So unfortunately some of the logs won't be fit for the log burner, but any that are not fit for the fire will be returned to the soil, as some will be left for the wildlife and some I will use at the base of new garden beds, hugelkultur style, but some will be suitable for the fire and will be stored in the new log store to season and dry enough for us to use. Moving the wood and then the pile of stones is very exciting for me, as this area links up the work that I've been doing on the new garden steps, and it's also where the new growing spaces will be. So gradually making space for the garden design plan to keep progressing step by step, literally. I have a picture in my mind to the stage I would like everything before I hang up my gardening gloves for the winter, but I'm not there yet.
She stands by the window, stares at the morning sun. She hopes for a clear view before the day is done. What can you do when you're head over heels in love? No need to fight, but it's keeping her up all through the night. No end in sight. She wanders along the trail down to the river. But will she dare to set sail? The thought makes her shiver. Watching herself behind those lonely eyes. The mirror of night are making it so hard to tell wrong from right. No end in sight.
This is a good time for me to have a good declutter and a sort out. I always start off in springtime with very good intentions to make sure everything's labelled, to make sure that I record everything, and also to keep everything nice and tidy, but it generally doesn't work out like that. So as I'm making sure that I'm getting all the corners cleaned, it's also a good time to reevaluate to make sure that everything's working for me, and if not, to change it. Storage and top shelf growing spaces always seem to be a bit of an issue, so I'm going to have a little bit of a move around, and I'm bringing a shelving unit from the greenhouse into the polytunnel, as I think it might work better, and if not, then I'll just put it back again. Some items like the garden fleeces or the net covers are destined to go into the shed, where I'm hoping to have a storage unit where I'll be able to hang them up, so that will create some more space. So we're just making do in between times until we get that bit organised. But my storage unit wouldn't be the same without a little bed at the bottom for our kitty cats to hide out in. Once I've finished here, the only things I've got left to do is to add a layer of wood chip to the path, and I want to replace some hotspot tape that's hanging down, and also to bring my strawberry plants in. I've really neglected my strawberry plants this year, so I want to give them a bit of TLC to see them over winter. the next part of my autumn nesting plan is to put the garden to bed. So thank you so much for joining me here today. Take care of yourselves and others, and I'll see you in the next video.